Hello? 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 I'm here. I kinda just wanna get going, that's why I'm on this screen. Hello? Hello, Rage? Hello? I think I see a little bit of lag. My computer's been lagging today. I think it's because I started, what's the word? I connected my new headset that I got, and I think in the middle of it, trying to install all the right software, it basically was like, hey, you gotta restart your computer for all this. So I'm like, I'm not gonna do that today. So I think my computer is just a tiny bit laggy because it wants to restart, or rather it wants a restart. What headset did I get? I got what's it called, Razer Kraken V4. It was specifically the one that was a Pokemon collab, so it's got it's purple, it's like lavender, and it's got Eevee and Umbreon on the headphones and the, I don't know what you call it, the fucking thing that connects the top of your head. It's pretty. Yeah. I'm just not using it right now because it's not fully set up with like resetting the computer and everything. The audio's not like perfect. Like, it sounds okay, but it doesn't sound like, yeah, as good as you'd expect for it to be like, oh, you can do 7.1 surround sound. It doesn't sound like that. So tomorrow I drop my controller. Tomorrow I'll probably be using it and figure out which one I like more. Anyway, we're gonna start gaming, and the way I'm gonna start is by starting with Brawl League Show, because A, it's a good minigame, and B, I love the fact that it's French. Yeah. So how you doing, Rage? How's your week been? Also want to make sure my TV's still synced up. So I'm not gonna do new games yet. French! The French! How am I doing? I'm doing pretty good. I'm just tired because it's my first time just back to work, you know. Alright, me. Yeah, I'm good. I'm chilling. I did a lot of sleeping today. That one was off beat. But they also got, I pressed the wrong button. I forgot how long this thing is. It looks like it's still synced up, actually. I like this song. I don't know. Anyway, what was I gonna say? I got more trading cards in this week. I got the white shorts cards that I was waiting on, the Uma cards, and the Hololive cards that I bought. So we're all set for whenever I want to do the hand cam. Just have a fuck ton of cards to open. I legitimately, it's gonna be so many cards. But anyway, if you guys missed Friday's stream of this game, I beat the main thing, and then they're like, hey, we're not done, and they introduced me to the flip side, and it's just new mini games and harder mini games. Anyway, we're going to Remix 9. I still got to beat it. Yeah, no, I'm always just tired on the first day back from work, so, or first day after I finish working. So I usually just spend Wednesday mostly in bed. Early. I love the new Karate Joe. Early. Oh. I like this remix a lot, by the way. It's kind of simple is what it feels like, but it's actually not. Like, is that lag on my part? I think it's lag on my part, not part. Not. That's like my computer lagging. I missed. Thank you for telling me to focus. Spoilers. I'm not gonna get a superb here. I highly doubt this is a superb. It could be, but I highly doubt it. This game's actually kind of hard. Yeah, just okay. Oh, I think another reason I'm so tired today. Have you heard of a game called Bobo Bay? No? Is this a these nuts joke? I don't know. But I got a text today that I have an appointment with a dentist tomorrow. They get to tell me how many cavities I have. I actually haven't had a cavity in a long time, so. What's Bobo Bay about? I've only heard Bobo's Big Tower. I gotta start over. I can't have a mistake that early. I just realized every minigame in this row is just pressing the A button. It's a game you can reach child garden minigame. Oh! Is it not this? What? Is it not the same minigame I was thinking of before? Not minigame. Is it the same game that was like promoting itself on Twitter for a while? That was like, oh, you want the child garden? We got the child garden for you. I don't think it's that one. The other one's called like something Lings, I think. Can I also say something about this specific remix? They introduced so this minigame, right? The Karate Joe one. They introduced it before this, like literally before this remix, and they introduced mechanics that wasn't in the rhythm game for this in this remix, and I think that's really funny, actually. Like, I think that delayed throw and this triple throw is actually not in the original. Either that or just, you know, different timings. Hang on. I still don't think this is a superb, but I think this is closer. But now these creatures called bubbles, raising and play minigames like the try garden. I think. Ooh, we got it. Superb. I read. Also, it might be the same game. I'm thinking of maybe they rebranded the name of the game. Also, if you guys hear a little bit of like noise behind my voice, I just have a fan on because it's actually kind of warm this week, so you guys might be hearing like the audio processing, the filter on my mic, trying to cut that out. This archery, we say every shot hit the bullseye. Hell yeah, he's played Robin's arrow and twain. That's a reference you guys might not know. Anyway, Superstar 2. Who cares if you're cleaning or performing? Your pop band is taking the floor by storm. Is this the official video? Yeah, I added a new emote, or rather, I just filled the slot. So, for those of you that are here, the subathon is done. We've lost a couple subs since, you know, it's been a month. I will say we hit the all-time high of 100, which unlocked 3 new static emote slots, and I believe 1 animated emote slot, if I recall. Maybe 2, might be 2. Which means that when you guys get to decide on new emotes, I'll let you guys pick what you guys want. Like, I just filled it with things that I had right now, but like, you guys essentially have free reign for 3 static and 1 animated. Superstar 2! Are we ladies? Or are we just different hair? Cool, hell yeah. I'm really happy how things turned out. Thank you guys so much again for this past month. This place needs some serious cleaning to the rhythm time. I think these are ladies, aren't they? First, let's practice starting and stopping as a group. Press A to sweep at the same time as your pals. Is it different? Oh. It's like half speed compared to the other one. Got it. Okay, I understand now. Let's just move on, because it's obviously going to be just this and then the original too. Bean, bean. Too early. Yeah. What the hell? Unicorn. Doggy. What the fuck? That was legitimately the worst I've ever done in a minigame. I don't understand why I wasn't getting it. I was just off like halfway off rhythm. That's what it was. Hang on, can I just do this? Sorry, I have to check. Okay, I think I can understand what I was doing wrong before. Wasn't locking in, that's what it was. Just messing up my cues. Okay, I've started to get it. This is probably still not going to be a superb, but we'll see. Just okay, yeah. I think we're like one or two, like half misses off. We'll nail it when we need to. Oh, that's very cute, actually. What's next? Oh, what? A second version of Hop and Slide 2? Or a second version of Hop and Slide? I kind of want to do that, I'm not going to lie. Like, the perfect, I mean. Okay, we go for the funny game. I think A for Effort's one of the funniest games in this, like, game so far. You guys ready? For the letter A. I pressed it way late. My bad. I was like counting in my head, and then in my head for some reason I counted one off of what I was supposed to press. Amazing, proud of you. Glad to be that time. Thank you, Rad. I still need to make the announcement about everything that happened too. Alright, try to lock in. Don't try to distract me now. What? How was I off on that? That's weird. This stream is sponsored by the letter A. Hey. There we go. monkey. Oh, I was like a half a second away. Anyway, now we go back and we do Sweeper Star. Okay. Also, if you guys been watching any GDQ, Games Done Quick, I love watching Games Done Quick. It's just fun sometimes. Inch. It's a little early there. Right. Why am I like a little bit ahead? Okay, this might be good enough. I think I got like 3, maybe 4 early hits. Oh my god. What the fuck, bro? Oh my god. I don't know what it is about. I don't know what, I think the beat on this song, I'm not getting. I'm like 4 or 5 BPMs ahead of it. Just lock in. Fuck. Who's your favorite band member? Mine's the one on the right. just messed up. I just completely blanked on pressing left to spin. I think that fucked me. Oh, look at it. Oh, I'm a gamer. I'm a fucking gamer. Scrub to a high shine. Also, fitting that they do hand hearts rather than like the little finger heart. I don't know. I think that's just... I prefer that over finger heart. It looks more like a heart to me. Anyway, Hop is Light 2. It looks like Miho updated her hurdle game. Please try to enjoy it. Oh, Miho, are you gonna piss me off? Miho's updated her game. Look at that smug ass bitch. Look at her. Look at that face. She's like, yeah, I made this travesty of a game. Yeah. Basic controls the same, just the same controls. Okay. I really like the audio cues in this. Like just in this game period in general. Early for both of them, huh? I don't like it when flowers pulsate. Not gonna lie. Gonna get ready to get this is by design. Oh, thank you. It's just early. Another bug! Oh, the Mount Fuji's upside down. I like this song, by the way. I like this song a lot more than the first one. Oh, it literally slowed down right at the end. Well, this should be probably a try again, right? Nope, just okay. Hopping and sliding are so cool. I think I got the difficulty just right, she says. Lightning bolting to... Oh my god, we have peak coming up. I'm sorry. I have to get this superb ASAP. I have to. Lightning bolting legitimately is probably my like single favorite minigame, not even just the song. Like I like Brawl Leaguer's show too, because it's funny. But I love the little guy in lightning bolting. It's time for the freaking ass. Boom. I like this minigame, this second version. Just like how much faster it is. It's way nicer than the first one. Yeah, it actually, the BPM starts slowing down at the end there. Oppenheimer, cool, and oh, I'm really good at video games. Yes, I am, but I only got an okay. What kind of bullshit was that? I'm really good at video games. Just okay, though. Hey! Cannot. No, don't do that to me now. Also, do anybody else find it weird that everything's pixelated, but for some reason the hurdles aren't? Ugh. Go! Okay. Lag! I don't blame my... if I don't get a superb, I blame that. I blame my computer. My computer is my biggest opponent right now. Alright, let's see what we got. Did I get it? Fuck! I'm blaming my computer for that one. The framescape got me. I was doing so good until I wasn't, obviously. Boom! Did I get it or did I not get it? I can't tell. I think I did. Minion, hi Dino. I'm gonna start over because I think I missed two things. Hi Dino. How's it going? Oh my god, what the fuck is going on with me right now? Stretch shirt. I'll do it right now while I'm playing. Oh, my model broke. What the fuck? That's what's going on. When? Oh my god, it's taking forever to load things. That's what's going on. No, I forgot to turn on my toggle so it doesn't do that. You didn't break it. I forgot to turn things on. The first time an item loads in VTube Studio, it causes a tiny bit of lag. Usually I just do everything once. The sauce is too powerful, maybe. How are you doing, Tano? What the fuck, man? I keep losing frames. I hate it. How was my day? I just rested for the most part. Been a little warm, so I'm a little lightheaded, I guess, because of the heat today. Mostly just from like right now being in front of my computer, you know. Doesn't feel that warm today, but it was. How was your week though, Tano? You've been freed from work is my assumption. Hello, Tactical. Here we go! The audio lagged for a half second and it got me off rhythm from the Twitch ban. You got banned by Twitch? What the hell? What did you do? Maybe don't say that because you might get banned again. Got hacked a week ago. Interesting. Well, it's a good thing you're back. Alrighty. You're saying goon? No, I think he's saying like good, like when you're going down. I have to start over, by the way. Too many mistakes. It's possible though. Like just like a random noise, like JYUN, ends up sounding like goon. I don't know. I honestly don't know what they're saying. I know they're trying to say like jump when you jump. Thank you. The minigame is really hard. think I try to be perfect before the glitchy part. Yeah, try to be perfect before this part. I think we're okay. Maybe not. That's 4, 5. Six. I think I would have been fine with 5, but maybe not 6 or above. Alright, Miho, tell it to me straight. Nah, fucking thought so. Fuck, man. All you hear is good now. You hear what you want to hear. Oh. I'm not. No, I don't wanna. Oh, I don't wanna. I should try though. Should always try for the perfects. You should never say no. Ugh. Alright, this one pissed me off before. Let's see if we get it perfect now. I forgot the timing. That's what happened there. Should have kept going just to relearn the timing. It's fine though. Okay. Damn it, let's keep going though. Way early. Just don't get the rhythm. Waiting dishes, washing dishes, my dude's good. Maybe the groundskeeper job. Ooh, groundskeeper job. Ooh. Tired to raise raises? Oh no. I know I can't get it perfect, but that's another practice because I have one more try after this. The boss gets crazy, yeah, because he's stressed out. Just watch right now. He's not stressed no more, so his face is okay. Like the whole point of this minigame, the second one, I mean, this specific one, is the bot gets stressed. The one that's giving me the faces. Alright, let's try. We're not gonna get it, but let's give it a shot. Maybe we get lucky. Yeah. I tried. That was like, I think Young Simulator 2, that minigame has been probably the one that's given me the most trouble in this game. Which is why I was like, I'm probably not gonna get it perfect, but I might as well try. Like, yes, I'm not getting a superb here, but I didn't struggle the way I did Young Simulator 2. Come on. Timing is wild, yeah. It's not at the timing you might think. You kind of hear it. There's like a quarter beat delay more than you'd expect from how they're giving you the timing. Either that or that's just my delay adjustment that I have on this game, because this game just allows you to like adjust your delay based on whatever your capturing device is. Which I think is a good feature, honestly. You wouldn't expect it from, like, you know, silly rhythm heaven, but it's a really good feature. Oh, my job. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you, game. That's 2, I think, already. Alright, I gotta try to be perfect here in this section again. Also, if you're wondering what bug the little girl's talking about, it's the fact that Mount Fuji's upside down. Because at the beginning of the game, it wasn't upside down. So I should be good. I think I only messed up in the beginning. Oh, finally, okay. You want to try something even harder? God, that face is terrifying. Anyway, we go. Hopefully, this is genuine peak. Warp to the beat and avoid the lightning. Nervous? Your alien physiology could probably survive lightning. Yeah. Probably. Keyword. But again, lightning bolting 1 is probably my favorite minigame. Not my favorite song, my favorite minigame. Because look at the little guy. Look at the little guy. Look at him. It's Glorp incarnate, but he also dances. Uh-oh, what's that? Oh, there's a friend. Another thundercloud has rolled in. Void was a name, blah, blah, blah. Okay. What's the timing? Oh, it's just twice the speed. Got it. I have to pay attention to which cloud it is, though. Early. The little face he does. That was like half a second early. I think. No, late. Yeah, it was half a second late is when the little half hit happens. Yeah, that's early. Okay, so what's left? Getting the hang of it. No, we're so okay. Is it gonna be from the purple one again or the pink one again? Got it. Okay, I understand now. Okay, okay. I understand. It's fine. I'll be good. All right. What's this song gonna be? Early. Hang on. I want to try to do this first try. Look at the little guys. Hopefully they start dancing. Where are they gonna dance? Look at them dancing. Look at them shaking their asses. Oh my god. 9? Fucking spirit bombing? No. They're ascending! They're ascending! Was the bitrate okay for that, by the way? It's gonna be just okay, I know that, but like, was the bitrate okay after it, once they started ascending? That was pretty wild, with their colon 3 faces. I'm gonna keep going though. I gotta keep doing that one until like soda hop. That's the one that quick hands what's the word? Spoiled. Alright, let's do this. I think the first song's better than this one, realistically. That's just me though. Gotta try to not get hit. Excuse me. Two half hits already? Twitch is lagging for you. You weren't sure? Okay. Well, oh my god, I was actually lagging. It wasn't Twitch, it was me. I just realized I dropped 7,000 frames during that minigame. That was a lot easier now that I kind of understood the rhythm they were going for. I don't know if that's a superb though. Oh, we got it, baby. You're flying beyond space-time. Oh my god. I love that face, by the way. I have to. Now for a new minigame. Is this entire flip side going to be 3 repeats, 1 new minigame? That can't be right? Because how are we going to get the second versions of these then if they're all just the final ones? Anyway. Oh shit, I didn't read it. Hang on, I didn't read it. Soda hop. Jumping rope is more fun with a friend. Maybe you do some double unders. Your legs might be a little short though. You calling me short? Also, the girl's cute, but I'm the soda bottle, by the way. Time to learn how to jump rope. First, we get you used to the movement. Press A to jump. Time your jumps together with your jump rope tutor. It's kind of cute, by the way. Go! Okay, what else is there? And if you got that down, work on double unders. You can't jump very high. You need to jump twice in a row. Listen for the signal closely. Okay. Bing bong. Okay. Is that it? Okay, that's it. Alright, let's see how good or bad this minigame might be. Also, I'm losing frames really randomly. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what could be wrong. Every now and then I just drop a couple frames. It's not like constant, so I don't know what it could be. Anyway, time for the game. Go for it!
3, 2, 1, stop!
As you have GD Kong Racing.
Jump, jump! Ding, dong, back, back. Ding, dong, back, back. Ding, dong, back, back. Ding, dong, back, back.
Hi, Bacchus. No, why? fuck?
3, 2, 1, stop.
That was not so bad. It was really funny how they just cover the entire screen on a double-decker bus. But probably just an okay. I missed too many. I got like 5, maybe 6 half misses. I want to be a better job robber. Oh, I like the cute. That girl's cute. I gotta beat it. Did they call me a rhythm doctor down there? But Harry didn't know Bacchus, so come in. We're jump roping today. Our sound alert's not on. They should be. What the fuck? Hang on. Don't worry, I'll give you a free one once it gets fixed. Why aren't they on? Oh, it looks like I had to reset it. Give me a second, I'll give it to you for free, don't worry. There we go. No more scam. Alright, let's do this.
Jump, jump. 3, 2, 1, stop. Jump, jump. 3, 2, 1, stop. Jump, jump.
Spell run, cool. I said it. Jump.
Jump, jump.
R-U-N, what do you want from me? Oh my god. Jump, jump! I love it. And then the other one's bing bong.
Jump, jump. 3, 2, 1, stop.
It's really funny, I'm just a bottle of soda.
Jump. 3, 2, 1, stop. Jump, jump.
How dare you?
3, 2, 1, stop. Jump, jump.
Yeah. I don't know. I got 4 half hits there. So is that good enough? I don't know. Oh, there we go. Alright. This remix, I don't know how much fun this remix is gonna be. Because I got some good minigames and some Interesting minigame. What can we? Oh, Slice and Dice Kitchen. Let's go! Let's go! We get to see the lady with her ass hanging out. Like literally, just watch when the minigame starts. Her ass is gonna be shaking. I mean, she's dancing, but like her ass is gonna be shaking. It's been a while since I've done this, so just gonna do it. I really like this minigame too. Plus the cats get the tomatoes. I think that's silly. The mushrooms have kicked in. Alright, cool. I got it. Again, after a while, the first one's usually just a scouting run. Lost a little bit of frames again during that. Okay. Also, I really like her ponytail. How it's animated. No! Last try. That's my third A press didn't go through. I don't know what happened. That sucks. My eye's a little dry right now. It's because I have the fan pointed directly at my face. I will stop doing that, I guess is the best way to put it. Remix 10, let's do it, baby. Vocals? No vocals.
Jump, jump. 3, 2, 1, stop.
Very slow remix. Never mind. I gotta start over. I messed up too many times before shit got crazy. Ching. All right. That was not as bad as I thought it would be once it got crazy. It's obviously, yeah, it's only just an okay, but still, not so bad. This for a race, you'd say, you look good out there. You got a PR? Personal record! Wouldn't that be a PR? Or a PB? Personal best, not personal record. It's the same. I guess it's the same thing, right? Birds! Number 2 soccer dreams. Anyway. Okay.
Jump, jump. 3, 2, 1, stop.
Goon. Lyra, I'm gonna kill you. Distracting me. Look at the Glorp little guy. Have you seen the little Glorp guy? Hi, Zolaris. How's it going? You got your daily milk. Nice. Mwah. But yeah, did I get it? We did it! Anyway, Lyra, how you doing? Did you eat? This for the race, we say. Nice podium finish. Podium means top 3, not guaranteed number 1. Anyway, Soccer Dreams 2. Keep practicing your soccer moves. This time, riding bicycle kicks. Ooh, baby. The chilena, for those of you that know Spanish soccer. Now get out there. Ooh, I'm gonna take a screenshot of that because this is really pretty. Is that Hayato? Is that Dreamy Hayato? That's gotta be Dreamy Hayato behind us. Let's kick the ball to the rhythm. Bicycle kicks. Start by trap the both header. Watch the timer. Press left after the signal. Okay, let's see.
Yes, you can.
You gotta hold it?
Yes, you can.
What?
Yes, you
Oh.
can.
It's not letting me kick yet. That's what it was. Now for the next step. We'll go for the big bicycle kick. Grab the ball, press A to jump. When you're there, press A. Okay, you gotta press A twice. Good to know. Press A, left to trap, A to jump, A to kick. Got it. Alright, let's see what the signal is.
Yes, you can. Yes,
It's pretty easy.
can. Yes, you can.
Also, that was all intuition, by the way. I didn't hear anything like the little whistle. I heard it once I finished the kick, but that was all intuition. Didn't hurt myself, right? Last thing. Number 4. Yeah, we're good. I know how to trap. I know how to trap, I know how to kick. Gonna give it my all today. Birds are gone. Are you watching me, Hayato? Wait. Why does it feel like someone's watching me? I gotta sneeze. Okay, never mind. I have to scratch my nose to get rid of the itching sensation. Someone on the bench? Who is it? I got a bit of a peek. But I'm busy reading. Still don't know who it is. Shit. Oops. Oh. What if it's Hayato? Oh, the weather's turning. Can't let that distract me. Wish I knew who was watching me.
Let's shoot.
Guess practice is over. It's probably just an okay, but I like that actually. Learn phase different moves, stretch like a pro. Oh my god, I got a superb. Your boss effects were incredible. I'm gonna try for a hat trick. Oh my god, I love the birds. I also love how I've said it last week, I'll say it again. She reminds me of Ramona Flowers from Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Big fan of that minigame. It's stuck too! Jump and catch this, flying just as they glide in usual patterns. Unique strategy. Ooh, what's the new timing they're gonna teach me? Oh shit, it's gonna be double jumps? Oh wait, is the little dog gonna get involved? Time for more flying disc fun. Controls the same as before, do a quick review. Feel free to skip it. Huh? Okay. Okay, we got it. Ooh. There, I gotta bounce. I like this song though. I missed it. That sucks. Ooh, the background. What? The rhythm didn't really change that much, so why? Yeah, what the fuck? This is a little early. I see what it is. I'll explain it when it's done. What? That was really short. So the different timing they were trying to explain was that was super, by the way. Was so usually when the girl would whistle, she would throw it right away. When the rhythm changed, like when they put the timer back on screen, she was throwing it not on the count of 1, on the count of 2. So like the timing was exactly the same, but if you went off the visual, it was different. Crap's next to Ribbon Rocket, let's get it. Yeah, so that particular rhythm was to fuck with people using sight reading rather than doing it to the beat, you know, to the count of 7 or whatever. Anyway, this should be an easy perfect. Watch me mess it up. I like this one too. Big frog. He has nostrils poking up, by the way. The one that I am, I mean. My nostrils are poking up. Oh yeah. Yeah. Easy peasy. It's also an early minigame, so it's kind of meant to be easy. So performance, we get a little bit of frog in the rhythm reference menu. Okay, let's get a comic. We got a new comic. The Adventure of Frog. Okay, Frog has a wooden backpack. He's tying a rope to the rainbow. He's tying another rope. Is he gonna hang himself? Nope. He just wants to swing on the rainbow. Kinda cute. By Young Sock in Top Gear. I don't know what the fuck in Top Gear means, but okay. That was pretty cute. Anyway, back to the flip side. Crash Snacks 2, you have to use your claws even more deftly to get food into the hole. Know when to bump or when to juggle. I swear to God, I said jiggle. Crab Snacks Dos. Alright, what's different here? Ooh, this is a real ass fucking background, by the way. There are still snacks to be stocked. We'll be faring faba beans this time. Press left and A in the right order to use your claws to get the faba beans through the hole. Okay. Oh, so that's why you don't have one button for both. It was specifically because of this minigame. Got it. It's left A in that order. I'm assuming it might change eventually, though. I got it. I thought there was lag. There's no lag. Okay. Review with the patterns number 4. Remember that kind of bigger thing. Back out. Keep it a mix. Same time to get use. Nah, we're good. Okay. This is a real ass background, by the way. Amor de Ajillo by Cabrales. I don't want to fuck up that early. Is this gonna have lyrics? Is it in Spanish, perhaps? Or Italian? Spanish. I'm quiet because I want to listen to the lyrics, by the way. What the fuck is an ajillo? Okay, they're saying ajillo del cangrejo, which is the crab something. Also, how the fuck did I get a Super Bowl and then I messed up a lot of times? What's an ajillo? Garlic? That's not true. That ain't true. Oh, it's a sauce. Oh, it's a tapa. Okay. I understand a little bit more now. So that's a fucked up song. The song was telling you about the crabs that are getting stewed in garlic and olive oil. What the fuck? We should be street performers together. That's kind of fucked up, I'm not gonna lie. What the fuck is this? Space Sentry. Protect the planet from falling meteorites. Gain power from the people and blast those blocks out of the sky. Goku? Spirit Ball? Goku! Whoa. Whoa. Hey there. You're the giant robot in charge of protecting this planet. Destroy fighting meteorites before they can do any damage. I'll get some practice in first. Press A to throw your boomerang after the human shout. Is that the right timing? Okay. Resolution. Throw your timer throw to the I part of the Aya. Okay. Got it. Okay. Kind of understand a little bit. What's left? There's a meteorite that are closer to the planet. You hear the note that follow it closer before you nail it. Type boomerang, throw it to the I part of the Aya chant. So it's a little faster than Aya, I'm guessing. What's the rhythm? Hi Brexy, hi Fledge. Okay. Boom 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 fire. It's wait 1 second, like 1 bit. Yeah, got it. Boom boom boom. Got it. 1 2 3 4 5. Yeah, little pause. It's bum bum for the slow one. Right, let me double check. Yeah, if it goes hi hi, it's the slower one. If it's boom boom boom, it's the quicker one. Got it. Got it. Let's move on. I already fucked up. How are you doing, that Fledge? This is a fucked up minigame because if I fail that, doesn't this thing just explode? They're pretty good, as long as a bop. Hiya. No. Fuck. I really like this minigame. Anyway, I was gonna answer you. I'm doing pretty good. I've been resting today. It's been kind of warm, but I'm chilling. Still got a superb on it. Awesome. This game is awesome. This minigame was cool. I was a cool robot. I kept everyone safe. He's a little blush. I like how the entire population was just like 5 dudes, not even any women. To offer skills in the jumble, the 4 things below. Okay. What we got? Please tell me this. I want some of these to be themed again. We've only had one, I think 2 themed ones. Shiny! Shiny crab. Bitch just got a fat ass thighs there. Look at that ass. Shantae wannabe. This is a double mini game. Hold on. I gotta start that over. I can't fuck that up. That's a really cool fucking picture in picture. Bruh. I like that. That was late. Early. Five, six, seven. Shit. God, I love this remix. It's probably just an okay, but this is a really good remix. No fucking way I got a superb on that. If this were harvest, we say, what a bumper crop. I never understood what bumper crop meant, but I know it means like a good thing. I thought I messed up too much. Quick Hands 2 already? The fuck, Quick Hands 1 was up here. Okay, anyway, now we're giving tools as well as sticks. All the beat and even do some double catches. I love this game already. Like even though I struggle with Yumbot, I like that minigame. Press A to catch more things flying towards you. First one is speedy double catch. Cue and timing a little different. Okay. Press A to the beat. Memorize the cues. Got it. Yeah, you do it right away. Got it. Put the whole thing together, and then pattern number 4. Cool. Okay, we got it. I haven't done the extra one yet. Oh yeah. A lot of these songs. Not over yet. I was gonna say something, but never mind. So what I was gonna say was a lot of these songs and these back half mini games have had remnants of other songs in the game. Not this game, other songs in other games. Like this one I heard like if you know Mega Mix at all, the song I'm a Lady Now, surprisingly, it kinda had the rhythm to that. Not even the trippy part tricked me up. I've conquered double catch and I could have caught him with my eyes closed. Only thing I'll say about I'm disappointed about this Karate Joe person, you know, the new person. This song just don't have lyrics, whereas every other Karate Man has had lyrics. Check it. Oh, perfect on remix 10. Well, and time to do my best. Right, because every other Karate Man has had remixes or lyrics.
Jump, jump.
Oh, really? Fucking Christ, bro.
Jump, jump. 3, 2, 1, stop.
I can never get back on rhythm after the double jump. Okay, let's try.
Jump, jump. 3, 2, 1, stop.
That sucks. Anyway, that's whatever though. Anyway, Spirit Slasher 2, Mighty Samurai. Evil spirits are gathered. Are there too many? There are never too many for a trained samurai. That's pretty cool. Is there gonna be a new rhythm or just the same thing? More Spirit Samurai, it's up to you to vanquish them, brave samurai. Once you went after another this time, keep trying to get them all. On-screen number will be your cue for consecutive spirits. Okay. Okay, got it. Got it. Got it. Raise your wrist motion, or just got rested for a little. This is just practice. Okay, we got this. This song does not match, but where are we going with the song, I mean? Oh, backwards. Okay, I like this so far actually. This is really cool. Oh, woman. Hello. I really like that. Oh my god, that was so cool. Your basic source codes are scintillating. Multiple spirits didn't scare you much, and you deploy the double slash beauty. I fucking love this one. This one was great. Like the first what's it called? Samurai slash spirit slasher was pretty good. This one, oh my god. Fucking love when things go fast. Anyway, wiper bosses too. They took their glasses off. Stay on their wheel shield, but no one gets separated in the rain. Did you know the wipers can move independently? I mean, didn't we learn all this already? Flower. They look so stupid without their glasses. Mr. Blue and Miss Pink have a hankering for more windshield wiper jumping. Ready for a new pattern? Press left to make Miss Pink and look up. New pattern. Oh, that's what they mean independently. Like that, actually. I like that. I'm assuming it's not always going to be left to right. A very quick review. Return to the pen I used the first time. It's fine. We got this. Okay. Bam, bam. Where are they doing the new part? Yep. Oops, early. I see your images, Vicuña. I'll read it in a second. Yo, I like the Yakuza in white actually. I gotta start over. I fucked up. What's good, sugar tits? Not much. How you doing? Also, Vicuña. I forgot something. Hang on. Don't type yet. Okay. You can type again if you want. What happened? I don't know. No, you like it's your name. I keep looking away the exact moment it becomes one versus the other. Ugh, come on. I gotta lock in. Anyway, Kikuya, how you doing? So I'm kind of locked in over here. Me good. Why are you typing like a Neanderthal? You're big Unga Bunga right now. What are you doing? Oh my god. I'm getting tripped up because there's 1, 2, 3 1, 2, 3, 4 there's 5 fucking triggers in this mini game, this rhythm game. And I'm getting finger tied which one's which. I just noticed when the wind picks up, the car like shakes. It's accurate, but I'm just saying. What? Fuck! God, fucking hell. You're big Unga Bunga right now? Why are you big Unga Bunga? Fuck, man. Jesus, this one's hard. There's so much coming at you. How about a little pick me up, bosses? High five fever. High five your friends. High five in lots of different places. So much fun high fiving. This is also a minigame they teased during Remix 9. Okay, I can do this one. Go, go. Early. Shit. I'm not gonna get this. I fucked up too many times. Oh my god. The car though? The car's fire. Straight up. Ow. Thanks, Tano. Alright. I get finger tied too much in the back half. I'm doing great. I am. I just like need to stop looking at chat. I'm not even lying. Like I'm trying to be a good streamer, and it's making me get finger tied. Best way to explain it. Ringing time, meow. Yeah. It's gonna be close. I don't think I got it though. Yeah, I thought so. Fuck, this is hard. Little hobby. No, yeah, I love this minigame. It's just this one's hard because. So, here's the reason why I'm struggling, right? I'm just let this gonna stick. So, there's I think 5 different inputs for this game that you have to memorize the visual and audio for. One for the wipers, both wipers moving simultaneously. One for both of them moving simultaneously quickly. One for each side moving, one for each side moving quickly. And then the alternating one. So technically 7. But it's you know, normal speed, quick speed for both sides, and then the double, and then the alternating one that they just introduced for this one. Also, do you guys like my yes emote? I've had it for a while and just took it away because I don't know. I had better ones to add on. I like the girl. She gives me absolutely like Mafia second in command vibes. The one on the top right with the orange hair. If you guys pay attention. There's a lot to look at, by the way. Okay. I almost got fucked by that leg. Look at the top right if you haven't seen it. She's very pretty. It's not top right, it's just the right of the car. That's what I'm fucking up on. I don't think this will count, but let's just find out. Maybe? Oh, that's why I said we gotta try anyway. Because that was my best run. Got the basics on cold bosses, soon a better night to storm, through the sook. You always made the best decisions. Now what's the picture gonna do? No one can hop a wiper like you two. Look at the cat. Cool, we did it. Now it's time for a new minigame. Oh my god, already? Holy shit, I'm going for it because I really like this one and I think I can get a perfect on him, honestly. Oh my god, let's do it. Let's freaking do it. Bye. Already got it wrong. Also, I do want to say if you guys ever see any bit of lag, like delay between my voice and my model, I took away, or rather added negative delay to my mic. That way when I listen to myself, because I listen to myself to make sure I'm not muted and I'm at a good volume, there's no delay for me, so I don't feel like I'm fucking drunk and I'm listening to myself like half a second ahead of time. I might need to do that on VTube Studio as well. I'll fine tune it. It's just a really fast mini game, so it's easy to just get your timing off by a quarter second and just lose your perfect run. All right, last try for this. Like attempt, I guess. Attempt at this try. I don't know. Maybe 3 lives basically. That was way too early somehow. I don't know why. Anyway, we're going to High Five Fever. Anyway, high five your friends. High five them lots of different places. This also was teased to me in Rhythm Remix 9, I mean. We're so fucking cute. Look at these guys. The Fly Fivers TV channel. Time for group 5-5s. I'm the one on... I'm number 2. I used to hand win first. Press left and A with left and right hands respectively. Okay. Now for some practice with music. Goals for everyone to high five at the same time. Press left and A together. Okay. Fucking sassy as hell.
3, 2, 1, play.
So fucking sassy.
2, 1, play. 3, 2, 1, play. 3, 2, 1, play.
Love clapping, my friends. So do I. Moving on. We're gonna starting and stopping. You gotta kiss my eyes. I was talking before. Okay.
1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1, play.
Got it.
1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1, play. 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1, play.
Now we're group clapping.
2, 3. 3, 2, 1, play.
Okay. This thing is really exciting. High five twice in a row after the signal. Okay. It's gonna bang, brum,
1,
brum.
2, 3.
Oops.
Check it out.
Ooh.
Check it out. Check it out.
Fucking clap though.
Check it out.
Oops.
Check it out.
God, such a fucking
Check it
boom.
out. Check it out. 3, 2, 1, play.
Okay. Put it all together. Zip to everything. Okay. Alright, what's this song gonna be? The fuck?
3, 2, 1, play. 3,
What?
2, 1, play. 1, 2, 3.
The fuck?
Check it out.
I like this. It's kinda silly.
Check it out. Check it out.
The fuck? What's up?
Check it out. 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 2, 1, play. 1,
Oops.
2, 3.
Hell yeah, look at him.
Check it out.
The angle though.
3, 2, 1, play. Check it out. 3, 2, 1, play. 1, 2, 3. Check it out. Check it out. Check it out.
Power.
Check it out.
Hey girl.
Check it out.
I really like this. It's so fucking stupid, but it's the same reason that I love A for Effort. Exact same fucking reason I love A for Effort. It's a really stupid mini game because they just put stock ass images with the rhythm having characters in it. It's so stupid, but it's like it's peak. Gotta clap your friends, bro. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's the stupidest fucking concept ever, but it fucking works because it's just silly.
Three, two, one, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 1, 2, 3.
Big ass yaoi hands and shit.
Check it out. 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 Check it out.
Everything's getting a sequel too, by the way. Does that mean A Forever gets a secret?
Check it out.
Or a sequel?
1, 2, 3. Check it out. 3, 2, 1, go. Check it out. 3, 2, 1, go. 1, 2, 3. Check it out.
Also, I love how
Check it out.
all the audio in this
Check it out.
is Big Crush to Hell.
Check it out. Check it out. Check it out. 2, 1, go. 1, 2, 3. Check it out. 3, 2, 1, go. Check it out.
Like, it's really funny that all the cues are just Big Crush to Hell. Because they could just use a good mic, but they specifically decided, no, this is gonna have a Big Crush test sound effect. You know? Okay, we gotta do this now.
3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. 1, 2, 3. Check it out. 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 Check it out.
I wonder what area this is.
Check it out.
No.
Check it out. Check it out. Check it out. 2, 1, go. 1, 2, 3. Check it out. 3, 2, 1, go. Check it out. 3, 2, 1, go. 1, 2, 3. Check it out. 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 2, 1, go. 1, 2, 3. Check it out.
Okay, this one should be a superb. This one should. 100% it should be. Keyword, should be. Oh yeah! You got a strong foundation. That 2-clap rhythm was sweet. Let's give it our all out there. Aw, they made him have fists instead of their fingers out. Alrighty, remix 12. Ooh, this is gonna be a fun one actually. There's A, there's left, there's A, and there's left and A. Okay, this will be fun. What's the rhythm on it though? Slower. Shit. There's the clapping trio. Wasn't looking. How did I get that one wrong so much?
Check it out. 3, 2, 1, play. 1, 2, 3. Check it out. Check it out. 3, 2, 1, play.
That was really short. I don't know if I didn't like that one, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I don't care that I got an okay. I did not like that remix. It was too slow. If this were a live show, we'd say that was pretty fun. Damn. Can do 2. This one, ooh, hop, drop, and roll 2. I can probably do that one. What time is it? 31. Okay, not too bad. Alright, I can do this one. I just need to quite literally just be locked in.
Rolling. Rolling.
Meow, meow.
Rolling. 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 Rolling.
What? How was I off rhythm there? The fuck? Like, these are the hardest ones to perfect. Like, to get a perfect on, because, like, just, you're off rhythm by half beat, you're fucked.
Rolling.
There's so many inputs.
Rolling. Dump, dump. Rolling. 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 3, 2, 1.
No, no.
Rolling. 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 3, 2, 1. Dump, dump.
Fuck. Damn it, man. Like I said, just you get off rhythm a little bit and you're just done. I'm not even messing up like rolling, I'm messing up just the rhythm.
Rolling. Rolling. Bump, bump. Rolling. 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 3, 2, 1. Bump, bump. Rolling. Rolling.
Fuck, I just pressed the wrong button. I was in the zone. Alright, we go back. We go back to this shitty ass remix that I don't really like. It's just slow, that's the problem. I don't really like slow remixes most of the time. Unless the minigames match, which these ones don't, honestly. And
2, 3. Check it out. 3, 2, 1, play. 1, 2, 3. Check it out. Check it out.
oh,
3, 2, 1,
brother.
play.
It is so slow and so short. It's fucking crazy. Oh my god, still just okay? Seriously? Really? Yeah, that was pretty fun. Wonder what Can Do 2 is gonna do. A third can, I guess, potentially? Uh-oh. Nope, can't mess up that early at least. Burn, 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 burn. That was a little early. Come on. No.
One, two, three. Check it out. Three, two, one, play. One, two, three.
Hey.
Check it out. Check it out. Three, two, one, play.
Come on now, please. Just give it to me. Please. Finally! We did it. It's FLIPSIDE we'd say. That was well worth the price of admission. Isn't that kind of the same thing as saying we had a good time? Oh, okay. Oh, what next? Crabs. Oh god, okay. We will go for it. I am a rhythm adept. I guess adept is better than doctor for some reason. Not what you'd expect, but it's true apparently, according to this game. Alrighty, let's do this. Nobody saw that. It's a real ass picture, by the way. I like this song. I don't really like the minigame too much. Crab Snacks 2 is actually not bad though. Fuck! I was in the zone, and then I messed myself up by humming. Literally, I think that was like the last one or two left. Alright. We got it. Take a look at Scissor Claws in the rhythm reference menu. Okay. Scissor Claw. We scissoring, boys and girls? Ladies. Scissor Claws. Alright, Big Crab has a piece of pink paper. Okay. They're cutting it. Okay, what are they doing? They seem to be cutting a lot of it. They made a little thing. I forget what these are called, but they made a little thing. That's cute. Anyway, back to the game. Gotta beat the fucking remix still going? No, we don't. Can do too. Crush more cans to the beat. It's great to have such a satisfying job, isn't it? Be sure to crush them neatly. Fine. More cans need crushing. Hammer swing to use the same as last time. Hold aim, blah, 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 whatever you got. We have it. I remember them. I actually practiced this minigame before I started. Oops. Look at it. It's a little faster than before. Ah. Ah, a little early there. Most of the time I'm just early. Brothers! Early. Early. Ooh, like the visual. Brother. Fuck you, Frog. Where were you? You're supposed to back me up there. I like the song. It went pretty well. Oh my god, okay, not even just okay. Keep up the very good work, okay? I don't know why he's talking about the sun, but he is. Soda Hop 2! Second Soda Hop! Nah, this one was rough. I know the timing, but the beat itself is a little faster, which means the timing I was using just wasn't working. Also, I want you guys to peep at the animation of the hammer after it swings. How fluid that shit is when it rolls back. Damn it, that's 2. The fuck? What the fuck? I don't know if that was early or late. I think it was early. This might be okay. It looks 3D. I think this minigame is actually in 3D, but it's stylized like Mr. Game & Watch where it looks 2D. Yeah, I was like, I think it's close, but not good enough. Because if you guys didn't know about Mr. Game & Watch in Super Smash Brothers, it's actually not, he's not 2D. He's 3D, but he's like cell shaded in a way that makes it look 2D. The only way you can tell, besides just knowing that fact, is if Mr. Game & Watch picks up the metal box. It becomes metal Mr. Game & Watch. Because he gains, and also, no, is it metal? No, it might not be metal. I think it's when he gets Final Smash and he's glowing. Because the aura surrounds him. This one will be fun. There's a lot of inputs in this one. You grab and throw him? I don't remember that part. And again, I don't really play a character that has good grabs or wants to grab. Lemon! Look at that monkey. Fuck. I was too busy looking at the monkey. Jacked as all hell is Pecunia right here. Also, look at that seagull on the side. Lemon! Lemon! That monkey was buff as hell, by the way. If you look at him. Maybe I'm blocking him. I actually can't look to notice. I was expecting another fucking green apple. Fuck. It me? Yes, it's you. I need to stretch my legs after this. What? How did I get that one wrong? That's weird. These are dragon to be lower accurate. I don't know about that. Lure, maybe this is before he became a genie. Back to Can Do 2 we go. What time is it? I'm gonna try to get all the way through this row, and we'll leave 14, 15. I'm assuming 16 is the last one. For next week. Maybe even tomorrow, because we're doing Twisted Battle tomorrow, and I think we might finish it early. Because I think there's only 2 characters left if I remember. Okay, looking good so far. Don't choke. I really like the song for this one, by the way. I should have stopped talking. But yeah, I like this song way more than the first Can Do. Damn it. Alright, I think we're good now. What was that? Just one half miss? To crush the cans effectively, Ribbit. Ribbit. You're due for a promotion and a bonus, right? Meow. Meow. Right? Meow. Okay, Soda Hop 2 it is. Jump rope together again. Remember the double jump? Did the ribbit kind of flip there, or was that just me? Ooh, is it going to be fast, regular, slow doubles? Is that what's gonna happen? Wait for more jump rope, then we'll be faster this time. Quick review, I know how to do it. We're good. Ooh, Italiano. Oh, la mia dolce ciambella. For those of you who don't know, he's a very famous frog from Rhythm Heaven DS. I'm off rhythm. I'm just straight up off rhythm. Jeez, I forgot the double and I got off rhythm. Like instantly off of that. That's so funny. Look at the pizza in the background though. Oh, the fucking frog. The frog gotta dump it. Oh, you should. If you've never seen Rhythm Heaven DS, that specific frog minigame, that frog's got an ass and they shake it. Best day ever! There's like, I think 6 frogs in that minigame and they shake their asses. It's my, I wanted this. I wanted it. Wait, what did I say? Here, this game remains a letter A. This time, celebrated with a full band. Oh my god. Anyway, quick hands. Frog, 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 frog. Frog. Anyway, let's see if we can get this one perfect. I didn't hear the throw for some reason. Also, I love that frog emo so fucking much. Alright. Oh yeah. Love that classic noise. Think we're good? We got it? We got it. What do we get? Unique training drill rhythm reference. Cool. How many perfects do I have? Not a whole lot of it. Probably like 10. That's my assumption. Unique training drill. Catching sticks. Catching pans. Got the pans, but not the eggs. That's actually pretty nice. I actually kind of like that. Alrighty, A for effort 2, my beloved. The other one was so fucking funny. How's this one gonna be? Is this supposed to be Sunku, by the way? Like the producer? We're back again at it again with the letter A. This time, also be tackling strings of the letter A in addition to regular words. What? Excuse me? Give it a whirl. Press A when the letter A says on screen. Okay. Oh. That's what I used to spell on arcade machines. A. You guys ready for your emotes? Okay, 5-letter version of this all A stream will pop in too. Don't let it trip you up. Okay. Yeah, that one. What the fuck? Hold on. What's the timing? What's the timing? Hold on. Wait, what? Okay. Got it. It's such a funny minigame. Okay. Put it all together. Those no 4-letter versions. Okay. Same as last time. Got it. Ooh, okay. Yeah. tea, you have soda, you have cocoa, but then you have the extra additions. And cocoa comes next, right? Oh, you're not gonna show me cocoa? Looking good, time to hit the stage. Alrighty, let's see how funny this one's gonna be. Best of luck out there. Hell yeah, look at this shit. Look at the dog. I like these characters, by the way. I was off. I don't want to mess any of these up. I want to get perfect because I want to see all the images. Also, the band is really cute. I like the girl on the left with the cello. She's very much my style. The dog winks too. I just noticed. No. Was I gonna press the last one? Okay. Interlude. Thought we were done. Again, it's a funny mini game. I think it's just an okay. Oh, never mind. Got the bases down. Cool. The cucumber and the AAA. We're on to the 5As was trilling. That rocked. Germ aerobics. Ooh, a new minigame. Also something that was teased from Remix 9. Okay, try to call your germs and learn the value of moving together. You're an important part of this forest ecosystem. Is this gonna be micro row potentially? No. Lockstep? You're a little germ. I have a bow. That's cute. I wonder if the bow is always there or not. Because I remember the dinosaur one, in the first row. There's a chance the dinosaur has a little bow on his tail. Time for daily aerobic exercise with your fellow germs. Learn the moves first. A to stretch up, down to squat down. Okay. Show rhythm to the germs. We're going to kiss to start and stop stretching and squatting. Look how cute it is down there, by the way. Instead of a heart, it's little sleeping guys. Okay, next. Moving right along. You want to approach this, but next part nice and slow. Let it keep your signal to start, but there should be a short pause before you get going. Okay. There's gonna be like a half delay. Got it. Okay. Make sure if I got it. Oh. It's burn. Pause. Go. Yep. One, two, three, stop. Go. Early. It's every other beat basically, which is why it tells you this really short pause. Okay. Get a little trickier now. Move switch between normal and slower pace. Okay. Alright, where's the timing? I feel like this one's gonna be kind of annoying, honestly. Like, not annoying, but like hard. Okay, sorry, something in my eye. Hang on. Okay. Okay. I don't like this. Yo! That's really cute. I don't think I got a superb right away, but that was pretty cute. No, we got it. They are delightful and the parts we had to skip the beat were no problem and fabulous focus. I I wasn't sure if I was gonna like the minigame from the tutorial, but that was really good actually. For keeping the forest healthy. I just realized this remix is gonna suck. What the fuck? Immediate perfect on this one? Okay, I mean I just did it, so technically it's the most practiced I am at any minigame. Alrighty, let's do it. Already? How the fuck? When the hell did I get off rhythm? Oh yeah, I was in the zone. I don't know if you guys saw it from my model, but I was literally like bobbing my head to like keep the rhythm. I'm surprised they gave me a perfect on that one like instantly. I guess it is just random. Accessory envy. Look, I got a little bow, and they go like nighttime, daytime. We all got little bows. they like the bow. It's the best way to do it. Yeah, I try not to sometimes, because sometimes when I bob my head too much, I get like lightheaded. If that makes sense. I don't know if that just means anything about me or if that's just common. Alrighty. Hold up. this was not a bad remix. This isn't my favorite remix, especially being late game, but it's not bad. Did I pass right away? Shit, I did first try. If this were a prize, we'd say, I can't believe my luck. Squid! It's Squid Baron from Shantae. The one on the left is, I don't know, some fucking demon thing. Demon jelly. Oh, it looks cool. I forgot to check what the bottom of these things say. What stage did I say? My fan died. Welcome to the flip side. How about stage 10? Challenging, no? You're right. Stage 11? You can do it! Stage 12? Do your best. This one says you're doing great. This one says challenging, no? We'll do one more. We'll do one more, then we'll stop. Oh my god. Population soared. Hello again. It's been 3,000 years, but you're still giving it your all, protecting the planet. Oh, that's why. This time we have to watch out for far-off meteorites, too. Trick here is to throw your boomerang one beat faster than you're used to, okay? Time your throw to the eye of the eye chant, okay? Oh, okay, got it. There we go. It's as soon as the noise ends. Yeah. Got it. Is that it? Then you pair it all together, don't wait for them cues. It's ba-ba-da-ba-hey-ya. It's for the far ones. I know that one's boy boy. Yeah, boom 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 is the slight pause. Is that one? Yeah, boy boy. Is that one? Boom ba da ba. Got it. I understand, I just need to get it right. Boy boy, hey ya. Boom boom boom, pause, hey ya. Literally. I'm getting it. I understand it already. Love's a little late. Yeah, okay. I think I got it. Let's just go. I think it was a little late. This fucking song was already a banger. I like the song. I'm kind of hoping I don't get a superb here so I can do it again because I really like this one. Skies are clear now. God damn it, things pretty much under control. I'm too good at this. I love you all. Aww. That's cute. Slice and Dice Kitchen 2. Oh my god. River. Oh my god. Ribbit Rocker 2. Oh my god. I don't know if I can do Ribbit Rocket 2. I'm not gonna lie. Food prep goes so much faster if you do it to the music. In this game, that is. Don't do any of this stuff in real life. True. Alright, I think I can do this one. The half beat tadpoles always got me though, so let's practice that a little bit. Do, got it. It was so much faster than I expected. Sorry, I should, if I fail the next one, I'll just keep going to practice the rest of the song. Early. Bum, 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 bum. Boo, boo, boo. I like this part. Okay, I can probably do this. It's probably gonna take like a miracle run, but I can do this. Thank you for the stretch and hydrate, by the way. Ugh. I think I'll make the next minigame besides this one. My last go. Anyway, one more minigame over here. Oh yeah, we'll do Slice and Dice Kitchen 2. Hell yeah, I love this one. Was it because the girl's such a fucking boss with her ponytail flying all over the place? Yo, she's working at a restaurant now. Time to roll up the sleeves for more food prep. Control same as before, quick review. Same as before, then we just go. But the song's a banger, please. It's already a banger. I just feel like a 50s thing. Sorry, kitty. Yo. That was off timing. Shit. I knew there was a last one. That had to be the last one. That's probably just an okay. We can do it again. But I really like this minigame. Presentation always matters. Even for the kitties. What's next on this row? Oh my god, this row is gonna be a fucking banger. I don't know what the next minigame is, but these three are great. Pop, don't drop 2. God, I kinda wanna do it now. Nah, we'll leave it. We'll leave it. I gotta leave some suspense for later. Thank you, kitty. Well, I gotta start over now. Way early. The rhythm's like half of this in the beginning part. Kitty. I love the visuals in this. How was I off there? Is that actual lag? No. It felt like there was some like visual lag there. I don't know if you guys kind of saw what I was seeing. It's okay though. We got our superb. It's gonna be a feast. Look at the kitties. It's a fancy feast. Oh my god, I will save that for next time I play. Okay, we have to be done by now. I have something to do after stream, so we have to stop here. Sorry. Go here. Let me turn some music on while we chat for a half second. Oh, my auto's not playing. Why is my audio not playing? Why is my audio not playing? It's fixed, don't worry. It's fixed. We're good. game is closing. Cool. Thanks for the stream. Yeah, thank you guys for being here. That's you, Titty Monster. Thank you again for VIP. Listen, you earned it for all the subs that you gifted during the subathon. So like, you don't gotta thank me for it. It's your literally your reward. Anyway, tomorrow we're going back to retro. We're gonna play more Twisted Metal. We're probably gonna finish it, and we're probably gonna finish it early. Like it's gonna be quick. I think we have. I'm pretty sure we only have 2 characters left. Gotta check what those rewards are. Yeah, I'll make an announcement probably tomorrow. And I'll DM the people that earned rewards. Can we just see everything? Yeah. Like there's a lot of stuff we have to do. A lot of stuff that you guys have to vote on. A lot of stuff that I gotta do. There's just a lot of things. What else? Yeah, tomorrow we're gonna be Twisted Metal. Probably gonna finish it quickly because I'm only missing 2 characters. Just depends on how long the characters take. If we finish Twisted Metal quickly, I'm probably just gonna play my Rhythm Heaven just to keep trying to bust that game out. I think next week we might do another hand cam because I have all of the trading cards that I bought recently. Like they finally came in today. I mean the last ones came in today. So I have all of my Pokemon cards and all of my White Shorts boxes just ready to go. So I kind of want to do a hand cam next week just to, kind of do it, just to open it, just see what I get. I don't know, maybe that's just me. I don't know. Maybe I'll wait. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know. I'm kind of just thinking aloud here. Anyway, yeah. We have Twisted Metal tomorrow, probably more Rhythm Heaven because we're gonna finish. And then Friday we have we're back to Stellar Blade with that beautiful fucking woman named Eve. But for now, I'm gonna take off. I'm gonna use the restroom, go to bed, and fucking work on that fucking subathon announcement because I don't want to do it overnight because you guys are not gonna get it tonight. I don't want to. I personally hate like midnight pings because like unless I have my phone on Do Not Disturb, it pings me and sometimes it wakes me up. So like I don't really like late night US time at least pings. Obviously if somebody's in like the UK or somewhere else that has daytime and different time, it makes sense. But like if you're US based and you make a ping at like midnight, nah bro, that's too much. Just to me anyway. But anyway, yeah, I'm gonna catch you guys again tomorrow, okay? And I'll do my thing. I will do my thing. I'll catch you guys tomorrow. You guys have a good night, okay? Thanks for being here. Thanks for everything as always. Little kiss. Have a good night, guys. Bye.